how many? The latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. If you've ever wondered how many podcasts are in Spotify now, well, according to a notification from the Spotify app spotted yesterday, there are 5.29 million of them. At Podcast Movement, research company New Voodoo unveiled research on 6 things that listeners love about podcasts and 4 that drive them crazy. A blog post from the company highlights one of the 6 positive things and tells us there's a webinar to come. Substack has added a podcast preview feature, allowing creators to add a second audio file to send to free subscribers only. You might use that as a teaser. The company has also added separate show notes. Audio Boom has debuted its new slate of original podcasts in the UK. Here's a sign of the times, a new youth podcast from a young entrepreneur in the UK, My Duvet Flip, is being released on TikTok and YouTube only. And an example of why a gradual rollout is not a great idea. In an article, the Daily Star in Bangladesh explains how to use the new Twitter podcast feature with plenty of screenshots, but the writer's account hasn't been enabled for Twitter podcasts at all. So the article completely confuses podcasts with Twitter Spaces. Thank you to Buzz Knight for becoming our latest personal supporter. We're grateful for your support of our independent journalism, and you can be like Buzz and support us. In fact, we insist in a number of different ways. podnews.net/support. And newly generated podcast pages within Podnews no longer carry the filtered credits information we used to display from Podchaser. We will be supporting the open channel level podcast person tag instead from the new podcast namespace. And in People News, Patton Valentine has been hired by Odyssey's Cadence 13 to help adapt the company's podcast for TV and film. He joins from Leyline Entertainment. And in podcast news, this launched yesterday.
The News Agents.
The News Agents, a daily news podcast from Global. Matt Deegan writes more about it in his blog. The show is being launched, he estimates, with more than £1 million being spent on it. The BBC's Americast, which used to be hosted by the newsagents Emily Maitlis and John Sopel, has chosen the launch day of the newsagents to announce its new hosts as a grumpy spoiler to their commercial upstarts. The show will now be hosted by Justin Webb, Sarah Smith, Mariana Spring and The Zurch, whatever that is. Straightio Lab, hosted by George Siveris and Sam Taggart, has joined iHeartMedia and Will Ferrell's Big Money Players network. The first official episode of Season 3 launches today and features comedians and host of the podcast Las Culturistas, Matt Rogers and Bowen Yang. Listeners, Just the Gist is to run a 3-part miniseries on true crime, promoting NBC Universal's Hey You TV platform. Modern Persian Food has launched its 100th episode. The show is a weekly podcast about Persian flavours, modern recipes, and embracing culture and identity through food. And The Run-Up, first launched for the presidential campaign in 2016, is back for the 2022 midterm elections in the US. The show starts on September the 6th and will be hosted by New York Times political reporter Astet Herndon. And that's the latest from our daily newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.